The following program is a podcast1.com production.
You are listening to a special best of edition of the Laura Ingraham Show. Why settle for less when you can get the best?
Your healthy radio addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
One toke over the line, sweet Jesus. One toke over the line.
I'll be introducing legislation to decriminalize marijuana at the federal level from one end of the country to the other. The legislation is long overdue. I've seen too many people's lives ruined because they had small amounts of marijuana and served time in jail much too long. It affects communities of color disproportionately and unfairly. And ultimately, it's the right thing to do.
Oh, good. What could go wrong? Well, what did I tell you? Big Weed is spending big money on Capitol Hill. And they want coast to coast, as Chuck Schumer is announcing today. 420 is the big. Why is that the big date for marijuana? My staff is on this. I know. Quick. 420 is the big marijuana date because
there was a Grateful Dead concert in Oakland, California in 1990, and the history of 420. Dump it, please.
Well, the 420 has been that's been the touchstone for the marijuana movement. And marijuana it's a popular issue, I guess, for some kids. They like the 420 because 20 marijuana facts for 420. Oh, this is funny. Yeah, for many it's not unlike the other 364 calendar days throughout the year, but for the cannabis community, it's something special. It's a day where marijuana retailers, consumers, and enthusiasts celebrate the cannabis plant in the industry's culture, often by consuming or smoking the product. According to an explanation offered by CNBC, the origin of 420 is believed to be related to a group of students in San Rafael High School in California. As the story goes, a friend's brother was growing cannabis in the woods at Point Reyes, but was afraid of getting caught, so he drew a map to the cannabis plot for the teens to find and harvest. Though the teens never found the grow site, they would meet after school and football practice at 4:20 p.m. during the fall of 1971 to smoke a joint prior to venturing out for the unfound plot. It was noted that 420 was commonly found in the group's private lexicon. From there, the cannabis consumption term took on a life of its own. Isn't that a nice story? So Chuck Schumer is on the 420 pot bandwagon.
If smoking marijuana doesn't hurt anybody else, why shouldn't we allow people to do it and not make it criminal? We allow the states to decide. So each state can decide on their own, but there'll be no federal agents or anything like that.
Few industries are growing with the swiftness and consistency of legal cannabis. According to a research from ArcView, North American weed sales jumped 33% in 2017 to $9.7 billion and are estimated to grow by 28% annually through 2021 to nearly $25 billion. By 2027, they're forecasting around $47 billion in North American sales. Oh, here's what they also... The weed industry is a massive job creator. 292,000 people will be directly or indirectly employed by the pot industry. That's a compound annual jobs growth rate of 25%. I have a question. Do they drug test in the cannabis industry? Like if you're working in a cannabis laboratory, are you drug tested? Nearly 3/5 of the country has legalized weed in some capacity. Well, you always open the door with the medical marijuana. And then, then all of a sudden all of these vape shops show up. Do you notice vape? Like, how did that become? Vape shops everywhere, because when weed becomes legalized, you go from just the vape, you put, tobacco in it, to pot. And so you take the tobacco out, you put the pot in. So you're all set up already. You already have the infrastructure for massive sales.
Why have you changed your mind on this issue?
Well, number one, I studied the issue, and we've now had
got a lot
some
of money from the weed
evidence.
industry.
State of Washington, other states, where
Evidence.
it has done lots of good and no harm. Justice Brandeis said, let the states be laboratories. Now we've had a few states, we've had a few laboratories. The experiment's been a success. Let's nationalize it.
He said, well, he's not the only one who's changed his mind on pot. John Boehner, who was against even medical marijuana just a few years ago, he goes on was it on morning TV, the Today Show?
Today Show, yep.
And check this turnabout.
You were, up until recently, somebody who was against the legalization of marijuana. Why did you change your mind?
You know, I found myself, like a lot of Americans over the last 10 years
Needing
or so,
money.
Beginning to look at this issue a little differently.
As a lobbyist.
And when I began to sit down with Kevin Murphy, the founder of Acreage Holdings, I began to learn more. And then I began to have conversations with my friends, and I found myself in a position where I thought, you know, I could lend my voice to this discussion about the medical use of marijuana.
Well, he now is on the advisory board of something called Acreage Holdings. And this organization is invoking the need for veterans to access the drug legally. And he's using that to explain his change of heart. Did she ask him, are you getting money for this? Why didn't she ask him? That's the obvious question. Who's paying you and how much are they paying you? If you get John Boehner to go up on Capitol Hill and say, guys, I'm not he keeps saying, I can't lobby. Maybe there's a time restriction for lobbying. But you should take a look at this. And these guys at Acreage Holdings, they got a lot of dough. My thinking on cannabis has evolved. I'm getting a sign made. Here's my sign. No evolving here. No evolving. I'm just not going to evolve. I'm actually never going to evolve at this point in thinking on these types of issues. I'm evolved. Oh, you evolved right to the bank. What are you talking about? You evolved.
You once said you were unalterably opposed to legal marijuana. Are you supporting the legalization of recreational marijuana in all 50 states?
I'm not advocating for that at all. My position is the states ought to decide. But there's a big conflict between what the 29 states have done that have legalized some form of cannabis use and federal law. Federal government describes this as a Schedule I narcotic. That means no federally funded university, and almost every university that takes federal funds can do research.
Good.
It also means that you really can't bank with regular banks as a result.
Good. Aren't you glad he's gone? What a two-face on this issue. This is exactly why the evolving sensibilities of someone like Boehner is exactly why people hate Washington. Hate Washington. I don't think Trump has ever been great on this issue, by the way. In that campaign, he was for medical marijuana. I'm totally against it. I'm sorry. I'm totally against medical marijuana because it's just a gateway, and it's just being used to push legalized marijuana across the country. I knew this was going to happen. It was obvious it was going to happen. Bill Weld, the former governor of Massachusetts, another liberal Republican, he's also on the advisory board. You're telling me they're not getting money? Private jet rides, what are they getting? They're getting a lot. They're getting their own pot. They could be getting a stake in a future corporation, too. They could be getting options to purchase, acreage or whatever. I mean, they're getting something. And we got to find out what he's getting paid. Let's go to Steve in Massachusetts, line 5. Steve.
Here locally in Gardner, we have these vape shops that have popped up in the last 2 months, believe it or not, because coming up this summer, we're going to allow, quote-unquote, legal marijuana, not just the medical marijuana.
Oh.
So we have a rehabilitation center, believe it or not, that just started up this past year for recovering addicts. And it's right next door, I swear, it's right next door, and people in the community are up in arms about this.
What town is this?
Is Gardner, Massachusetts, between Athol and Leominster. About
Gardner.
50 miles, Gardner, about 50 miles northwest of Boston. So this just started up. They're waiting for the marijuana law to come into effect.
Yeah, they're making big money. They make big money on this. All these vape shops are all over Florida, by the way. all over Florida. I was stunned in Delray Beach and in West Palm Beach and vape shops everywhere. So they are getting ready for the big national push and the state-by-state push for decriminalizing marijuana. Marijuana is okay. Sell it, use it, whatever. And they want the tax dollars.
Not to mention in Chuck Schumer's state of New York, when I go back, I see vape shops everywhere.
Yeah, well, again, they all know it's coming. So it's the easy delivery of in vapor is the easy delivery for this type of cannabis. So this is what they're going to do. Here's my deal. I have so much work to do. Even if I were inclined to do marijuana, I don't have any time. Who has the time, let alone the money, that you want to spend on another thing that clouds your thinking? Can you imagine this? You shouldn't do pills either. I'm not saying pills or booze it up. No. But I don't have the time. I remember I think it was one of the Trump kids at one point. Did you ever drink? And like, no, I'm just too busy. Too busy. No desire. That was interesting. Too busy, no desire. Let's go to Judy, who came from the hippie era. I love that. My mother always warned me about the hippies. Judy, go ahead.
Hey, baby. Hey, Laura, yeah, seriously, Hank, because really and truly, that's what my point is. I'm 66, going to be 67. I was seriously in the hippie era when pot was just flowing all over the place, and my husband at that time and all of his friends, their wives, their girlfriends, and I'm dead serious, I have no reason to lie, I didn't smoke it. I didn't want to. But anyway, we're talking about back then, and it's always like, yeah, dude, this is so cool, and they're talking like this. They're slow. They're ridiculous.
Dumb.
Well, nowadays, because me and my fiance at our age, we still know a couple of his friends that smoke pot still to this day, and there are so many more additives in it now that it literally knocks them on their you-know-what. And all these people that want to legalize this now, it is just another push to make our country stupid.
Don't get stuck on stupid. Remember that line from General Honore during Katrina? Don't get stuck on stupid. People, he said. He's stupid. We don't need any more stupid people in the United States. We have enough stupid people in Washington who do stupid things like spend the money that we don't have. Now we're going to have more stupid people high as a kite all around the United States because Chuck Schumer thinks he's evolved on the issue and John Boehner has evolved. He's evolved right over to Acreage Holdings. That's where he's evolved. How much money are they making? We got to find out how much money they're making. 5 years in, the effects of legalization in Colorado and Washington state. A study produced by the insurance industry for highway safety, which has received criticisms from legalization advocates, found that in the year 2014, the year in which the first legal recreational cannabis shops actually opened for business, overall claims for traffic incidents rose by 14% in Colorado and 4.6% in Washington. While a certain amount of annual increase was expected regardless of legalization, even after researchers accounted for controls, including rates of increase in nearby states where cannabis remained illegal, a rise of 2.7% was attributed to the legalization of cannabis. A correlation has been observed, thus, showing a disproportionate increase in traffic-related insurance claims in states where cannabis has been legalized. And both Colorado and Washington have experienced tremendous growth in the cannabis business ecosystem in years since the state increased access. Big money has gone into the state. So listen, we send all of our manufacturing overseas, our heavy manufacturing, send it all to Asia, Vietnam, so we can just do the pot industry here. So we'll have what? What are we going to have left? We'll have restaurant chains, hospitality workers, and pot industry workers. By the time they get through with Boeing and McDonnell Douglas, Chinese, they'll work to put them out of business too. All those manufacturing of aircraft. $83 million received in excise taxes alone during the first year of recreational cannabis in Washington state. In 2014, Colorado got $76 million in revenues. Tax revenues in 2015 increased to over $135 million. How much of that goes to increased healthcare costs? Decreased productivity at work. What's the balance out on the other side? Stay with us.
Don't get stuck on stupid, reporters.
Stay tuned for more of this special edition of The Laura Ingraham Show.
The hit true crime series, Murder Made Me Famous, is now on Podcast One, showcasing some of the most notorious crimes imaginable, including Scott Peterson, Jodi Arias, Ted Bundy, and more. See how murder made them famous. New episodes every Tuesday on PodcastOne.com, the Podcast One app, and Apple Podcasts. And check out the new season of Murder Made Me Famous every Saturday on the Reels channel.
You're listening to the best of the Laura Ingraham Show.
And everybody knew you didn't give no lip to Big John. Big John. Big John. Big Bad John.
A scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I really miss it and 10 being ecstatic. How much do you miss politics?
10.
Really?
You smoking?
Ecstatic.
Ecstatic to be out of it.
I guess I'm on the one category then. I'm very happy. I've not had a moment of regret or remorse. Every morning it's hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. This is not my problem.
Okay, that's like a 12.
Maybe he went to the vape shop before this interview. He seemed a little confused at the 1 to 10. Well, guess what? The feeling's mutual, John. We don't miss you at all either. It's not my problem. These problems aren't mine to solve. Good, because you made them worse. We now have solutions to more problems. And again, I used to not hang out with Boehner, but I like Boehner as a person, but it's just, you're right, it's not your party anymore. Because guess what? The Republicans nearly took our country down a sewer out of which we could not crawl out. Donald Trump's trying his very best, even with a Congress that's not all that helpful at times, he's trying his best to get this done, to actually begin the process of draining the swamp. And it's difficult, it's unpleasant, they want to kill him off for it, but he's actually has the guts to do it. And he called out the old guard, the old way of doing business. It didn't work. People don't like the old Washington GOP establishment for a reason. They didn't have solutions for our problems. So John Boehner's content, which is fine, to go home to Ohio, which he should have done. I'm glad he did. And go lobby for pot now. Because that's not going to cause problems for the country, John. Lobbying for state by state. And don't try to tell me, I'm not for legalization. I'm just for the states doing it. It'd be one thing if he was going around talking about how the states should be able to outlaw abortion if they wanted. But no, he's doing the states' rights for pot. That's really brave. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show. A great piece published just in January. Nearly destroyed by pot. Former addict worries others will be hooked by legal marijuana. I've heard this before from mothers who told me how their kids got addicted to pot. We did a big piece some years ago on Life Zet about a young man in the Washington, D.C. area who got hooked on pot, and it destroyed his entire high school and part of his college life. Lucky you, you're listening to a special Best of Laura Ingraham Show.
I smoked 2 joints before I smoked a joint, and then I smoked 2 more.
Do you think it is a good issue for you to be putting out right now, day before 420, to try to get youth votes?
Well, the more support we can get, young, middle-aged, old, the better. That's how democracy works.
But is this targeting young people? Are
Not
you trying
necessarily.
to target?
No, 63% of all Americans are for legalization. We just do decriminalization. So it's aimed at pretty much everybody.
Who funded that? Who funded that study, that survey? A lot of you have had your own experience with marijuana in your family, and what it's done to communities. Marijuana devastated Colorado. Don't legalize it nationally. Interesting piece that came out a few months ago. Our country is facing a drug epidemic. Legalizing recreational marijuana will do nothing that Senator Cory Booker expects. We heard many of these same promises in 2012 when Colorado legalized recreational marijuana. In the years since, Colorado has seen an increase in traffic-related deaths, poison control calls, and emergency room visits. The marijuana black market has increased in Colorado, not decreased, and numerous Colorado marijuana regulators have been indicted for corruption. In 2012, we were promised funds from marijuana taxes would benefit our communities, particularly schools. Dr. Larry Bull, the superintendent of Cherry Creek Schools, one of the largest school districts in the state, said so far the only thing that the legalization of marijuana has brought to our schools has been marijuana. In fiscal year 2016, marijuana tax revenue resulted in $156 million. The total tax revenue for Colorado was $13,327,000, making marijuana only 1.1% of the state's total tax revenue. The cost of marijuana legalization in public awareness campaigns, law enforcement, healthcare treatment, addiction recovery, and preventative work is an unknown cost to the state. We need answers to this, to all these questions. How much is this costing us on the other side? Again, other health-related problems, other lung issues that you develop, emergency room visits, poison control. How much does this cost? How about a lack of productivity at work, a lack of ambition and productivity at school? A lot of teachers are finding their students coming into class high. I know that happened before, but not as it's happening now in Colorado. And Cory Booker, by the way, twisted the president's arm. You know what he did? This is Cory Booker. Cory Gardner. I'm getting my Corys mixed up. Cory Gardner actually managed to convince President Trump to come out, I guess, to agree not to prosecute the marijuana efforts in these states and marijuana in various states in exchange for Cory Gardner releasing a hold on various nominees that Trump has nominated, people that Trump has nominated. So confirmation votes being held up by a Republican senator in Colorado for pot. That's how much they want this pot legalization to catch fire across the country. And I think a lot of these people are thinking about what they're going to do when they leave office. Pot industry will always have me. They talk about big oil. How about big pot, big weed? DNC is suing Russia, Trump campaign, and WikiLeaks over alleged election interference. All they have is stunts. This is all the DNC has is stunts. That came out a little while ago. So they're suing Russia, the Trump campaign, and WikiLeaks. This is why we need lawsuit reform in this country. It's a total joke. Let's go to Michelle in Maine, line 5. Michelle.
Hi, Laura.
Hey, welcome.
The real toll that's being taken on this country is the country itself. This has already promoted so much lawlessness. These people across the country believe that it's legal because they say it's legal, not because they went through the legal procedures, which would be at the federal level. I'm in Maine. Our legislators right now are arguing over how much taxes they're going to be taking from people who are selling an illegal substance. And that in itself is a federal crime. When you take a percentage of money from a drug dealer, what is that called? A crime, right?
Right. Well, it's to me, it's just obvious that you're going to get more problems. With more drug use comes more problems. It's going to happen. It's already happening. I know people like to smoke their weed. They go home, I just want to relax. Okay, well, do something else. Go work out. I'm tired of that. Mike in California, line 6. Mike.
Yeah, the top of the morning to you, Laura. There's a gentleman out here by the name of Joel Grover that did a study on 44 dispensaries, and they took it to a lab, and when they put a light to the marijuana, the chemicals on it turned to cyanide. It's Joel Grover. You ought to look into it. And keep up the good work and praise the Lord.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We'll look into that for sure. Let's go to Robert in Michigan, who thinks Republicans should work with Schumer and pass the nationwide decriminalization of pot. Go ahead, Robert.
Hey, Laura. How's it going?
Good.
I mean, obviously we disagree, but I think if you'll look at the states that have legalized medical marijuana, they've had a decrease in actual prescription drugs, which if you take it from any pot user, I mean, anybody says, pot's a gateway drug, but really prescription opioids lead to stronger prescription opioids, which lead to heroin. So generationally speaking, if you want to help curb drugs in this country, legalizing pot would hurt big pharma, which would hurt the heroin industry, which is pouring it across our borders every day. Not to mention, if you legalize pot, you legalize hemp, which gives us natural alternatives to fuel and housing. Well, housing materials.
Yeah,
Sorry.
well, I think the hemp issue is an interesting one. But I think, look, there's a piece today in the Washington Post. Does medical marijuana decrease opioids or boost it? It said on Thursday, an advisory panel to the FDA voted its support for the marijuana-based drug, a treatment for 2 rare forms of epilepsy in children. It's a cannabis-derived medicine, and it moves closer to full FDA approval. Some people think marijuana has the potential to make an even bigger contribution to public health. Studies conducted at the state level show that expanding access to medical marijuana is correlated with lower rates of opioid misuse and overdose. Yet studies of individuals show that using medical cannabis is correlated with higher rates of using and misusing opioids. This set of conflicting research has revealed less about the relationship between marijuana and opioids than it has about how science is misunderstood and misused in political debates. And look, people cite the studies they want to cite. All I know is this. If I have to have a choice between getting operated on by a doctor who uses regularly marijuana and a doctor who doesn't regularly use marijuana, I'm going to choose the latter. I'm just going to choose the latter. And I guess you could say the same thing about alcohol. Yeah, I mean, alcohol is abused. There's no doubt about it. But I have to think, and I've thought this for a long time, that drugs and having a permissive attitude toward drug use breeds more drug use. You will have more kids using it. You will have more teens using it. And that spells real trouble for the developing brain. So, adults want to use pot in their home. I don't really care. But once kids are told by adults that it's better for you, frankly, it's better than alcohol, what do you think the kids are going to do? Kids are going to use marijuana. And we know already it's a 6 times increase in schizophrenia when teens use marijuana regularly. Remember, the brain, the prefrontal cortex, doesn't fully develop till age 25. Marijuana does weird things to the developing teen brain. We cannot have a generation that has malfunctioning brains because we're so addicted to the money marijuana legalization brings to communities. Big weed, watch the lobbying dollars. Watch who they've aligned themselves with in order to convince you that it's all okay. Up next, Christianity in China. What President Trump said, interestingly, about Christianity in Egypt in those Comey memos, it's not getting much play. But the story in China is even worse. We'll tell you about it.
You're listening to the Best of the Laura Ingraham Show.
China, all the way to New York.
The government in Zhejiang province has removed, sometimes burned down crosses from as many as 2,000 churches there, says U.S.-based religious activist group China Aid. At times, the Christian faithful have protested what they call illegal demolition.
I can feel the
Chinese Christian advocates say President Xi has a particular animosity against Christianity. Why do you think that is? Because the government, the regime, communism is the religion in China. And you must not deviate from that. There is no higher God than Xi. Joining us now is Bob Fu, a Chinese-American pastor from Texas, founder and president of China Aid, that provides legal aid to Christians inside of China. Bob, it's great to talk to you. It's an issue that frankly, never gets enough coverage as we talk about our relationship with China and these businessmen going over there and making all this money in China or sending factories over to China. In my mind, it's no different from how the Soviet Union treated Christians back in the 1970s, 60s, and into the 1980s. Except it's probably worse in many ways.
You're exactly right, Laura. Thank you for having me again. It is under this Emperor Xi, as he had already removed the constitutional limits of his terms. And the religious freedom and human rights in general has become the worst since the end of the Cultural Revolution of Chairman Mao's time. As you just mentioned, really, President Xi or Emperor Xi has launched wars against the church, against the crosses, against really the children, Sunday schools. Now we have seen really in the past few months after this new regulation on religious affairs took effect, we have seen a tremendous increase of more persecution. I mean, in one province, in Henan province alone, on day one after this new law took effect, over 300 churches were totally shut down. And now this week we just learned that the government started to shut down the Catholic churches, and the local cadres, the Communist Party the leaders in different villages are searching home by home for every Christian families to confiscate their Bibles, any Christian signs, including a cross on the wall, would be confiscated. And they banned the house church services, and even in the government-sanctioned church building, in front of every building, there is a sign that no children under 18 years old, no students, no Communist Party members, no military members, or no civil servants are allowed to enter into the church.
They want this to be complete loyalty to the regime. And this is where Pope Francis has made a critical mistake in working with the Chinese government and allowing the Chinese government to have a say on who gets to be a bishop and who doesn't get to be a bishop. So now it's just the communist bishops end up these communist fake Catholic bishops end up becoming the official Catholic bishops in China. That's another problem. And then they're just going to report everybody who comes to the services.
Yes, and every church pulpit is now asked to install face recognition cameras so that the pastor's sermons can be monitored, recorded, and every attendance of the church or mass can be recorded. And it's just so sad, to have the Catholic Church the Pope would agree if they end up, signing this deal that allowing the Communist Party to have the nomination power of all the Catholic bishops in China. That is really, I think, nothing but a betrayal of especially many persecuted believers in China, and many bishops, were imprisoned and even martyred.
No, it's Bob Fu, Chinese-American pastor, China Aid. We're going to link up China Aid's website on our Facebook page. So please do what you can to help his efforts to educate this country, but to help those truly in need in China. He's an amazing man, and we're going to really find out the truth someday, but I hope it's not too late.
You are listening to a special Best Of edition of The Laura Ingraham Show. Why settle for less when you can get the best?
Your healthy radio addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
We've seen the anti-smoking commercials, read the ads and warning labels, all which have attributed to cigarette smoking going down. But vaping is becoming more popular among teens. According to the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse, half of middle school-age children said e-cigarettes were the first type of tobacco product they ever tried.
When I first started vaping, I just turned 15 years old, so I've been doing it for about a year now. All my teammates do it. It's just pretty normal for everybody to do it.
You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. I confess I don't get any of this. I just... It was sold to people as, oh, it's better than cigarettes, right? It's innocuous. It's just vapor. Well, no, it's not. The statistics about how e-cigarettes, they're less bulky now. They can be as small as these little USB drives. These kids carry them around. E-cigarettes are breeding 81 times as many new smokers as quitters. This is from Bloomberg, reporting on the Dartmouth Institute for Health Policy at Dartmouth College. So the model estimates that the use would lead to about 1.5 million years of life lost, a figure based on an optimistic 95% relative harm reduction of using e-cigarettes compared to traditional cigarettes. But what they're finding out is advertising e-cigarettes as a means to quit or reduce smoking has done damage, mostly to young people. E-cigarettes use cartridges of chemicals, including nicotine, that are transformed into vapor. Despite a federal requirement that purchasers be at least 18 years of age, use of the product, of course, is very popular, as you heard from those sound bites, combined with its fruity flavors, have proved a strong draw to younger would-be vapors. And these are kids, as you heard, who start as young as 10 and 11 years of age. And again, under the belief that this is so much better for you and there really will be no harm.
People that I know that do it, they're like good students, like straight A's. It's a normal thing to do. I was 13 the first time I vaped.
New research showing that e-cigarettes are hurting a lot more than they help. Duh. Well, what do you think is driving this? Ka-ching! Money, 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 money. It's almost a $12 billion a year industry. And it's big, big business. You see all the vape shops popping up all over the United States, many of them in anticipation of pot being legalized, or at least not prosecuted nationally, leave it to the states. There's a massive lobbying industry, both for vaping and for weed. Tens of billions of dollars being invested. It could be $100 billion business ultimately in North America. This is, entire farms in upstate New York. It's a separate product, but related, has industrial capacity and uses, is hemp farms. Hemp farms, again, it's like marijuana, but you can't use it to get high, very small THC level compared to the type of marijuana you're seeing in Colorado and so forth. But just to show you where lobbying takes old farms, these old upstate New York farms outside of Buffalo and so forth are all being transformed into hemp farms. And then soon, marijuana farms. That's where this is going. So politicians see money, big donors, businesses see an expanding audience, consumers for this product without regard for what it does to kids.
The state's health and education departments are now sounding the alarm after a statewide survey found e-cig use rose 50% in just 3 years.
And keep in mind, that's a high school average. It basically reflects an explosion of availability and use of these new products.
A new study from the American Academy of Pediatrics into the relationship between e-cigarettes and marijuana use among adolescents. The study examined more than 10,000 teenagers who had never used marijuana. surveying the participants before and after a year's time, at which point they were asked whether they had used electronic cigarettes or marijuana. The use of e-cigarettes was, in fact, found to be associated with marijuana use, particularly among participants ages, you ready for this, 12 to 14. The association between e-cigarette use and future marijuana consumption was less strong as the years went on. Reducing youth access to e-cigarettes may decrease downstream marijuana use. That makes sense because you get used to doing something like that, smoking or vaping. And then when marijuana is inserted into those cartridges, that's even more fun. I mean, you're 12 years old and it's like juicy fruit taste in your mouth with the vaping, but then it's something much more interesting. Yeah, other studies have examined the association between cigarette smoking and future marijuana use, have made similar conclusions. Reducing teen tobacco use also could reduce teen marijuana use. None of that surprises me. But don't you get the sense that just nobody cares about the effects on young people? The developing brain, the work ethic, what it does to individuals' drive, ambition, sports, lungs. You're getting all sorts of different mouth cancers with marijuana. It's people think, oh, you don't have the same type of toxicity that you have in regular tobacco. You're taking smoke into your lungs when you smoke marijuana, okay? And it's doing lasting damage to the development of young brains, period. It causes, I think, you're 6 times more likely to develop psychoses such as schizophrenia and other diseases such as that. I mean, it's bipolar, and none of it is surprising to me. None of it. And the gal who says, "Well, all the straight A students are doing it." Oh, really? I want to see the straight A students who are vaping. Okay, I don't believe that for a second. Oh, the top athletes are doing. No, I don't believe that. You show me all the Olympic athletes that are doing vaping and smoking pot. I don't think it's a huge number. I'm probably some, but not a huge number. Do you see this trend, and what do you think of it? Just an innocent trend, not a big deal? Have you tried vaping? Adults I'm not as worried about as I'm worried about the kids. And when it's accessible and shops are popping up everywhere, it's just seen as, well, adults do it. Why can't I do it? It's why you're seeing more pot use among young people. Same thing. Because it's now considered not a dangerous drug. And kids will try it. Not a big deal. 855-40-LAURA, the vaping world. Teen vaping, what you should know. Oh my gosh, there are stories. What you should know. Hookah pens, vape pens, vaporizers, e-pipes, e-cigarettes. Yeah, vaping is common. More than 3 million middle and high school students used e-cigarettes in 2015, up from 2.4 million in 2014. That's a big jump. Ooh, huge jump. And e-cigarettes were most commonly used, were the most commonly used tobacco product among students in middle and high school. In 2011, fewer than 2 in 100 high school students said they used e-cigarettes. So 2%. By 2015, it had gone up 8-fold. 16 out of 100. Keep doing the math. See where that goes. 855-40-LAURA. Do you have a problem with this? Do you sense your grandkids, kids, or do you do it? And I'm too busy to do that. I don't want to spend money on stupid things either. I'm saving my money for rainy days. Don't go away.
People at my high school, they would vape on the bus just because it's like so easy to hide. It's just like a little like black pen. I could just vape at home like my parents don't know at all.
You're listening to the Best of the Laura Ingraham Show.
Most of my friends that vape, they use nicotine. A lot of nicotine, actually. Like, because you can put as much nicotine into it as you want. Like, the concentrates can go way past just cigarettes.
There's too many flavors to count. There are endless amounts that you can get.
There's cotton candy, bubblegum, peppermint.
Some that taste like pancakes, coffee flavor,
I heard one was unicorn puke. It sounds like cartoon flavors or something.
It makes them seem a little bit more kid-friendly, so people are, like, okay with doing it.
Is it just me, or do all of these people, these young people, God bless them, sound like they're stoned? Well, or just, what's that word you use to describe
Vocal
it?
fry.
Vocal fry, fried voices, maybe.
Yep.
Well, lure him in with the vape. Chris in Indiana, line 4. I can't believe I'm doing this topic today, but you never know what you're going to get on the Laura Ingraham Show. And, this is what the kids are doing. This is what you adults are doing, too. It's big business, $12 billion a year business. Chris.
Yes. Quick negative thoughts on the vaping. I started vaping to get away from the cigarettes, and it was a huge mistake. I should have just stopped it all. Developed severe sore throats. Doctors have no idea why. Allergic reactions. Yeah, it drags you down all through the day. Twice what a cigarette would.
You're kidding me.
And,
so I have a question. So when you say you got the sore throats, maybe that's why all these kids sound like they're talking like this, right?
I guarantee it. I wouldn't be surprised if you couldn't hear it in my voice. I'm now trying to quit, and I will succeed. It's trash. It's very expensive. I probably spend, I would say I did spend between $40 and $50 sometimes a week on it when I would normally just buy one pack of cigarettes.
Oh, no.
So,
No. You got to get off that, my friend. We want you around for a long time, so you need to get off that. You need to get. Are you? How much are you doing it still?
I try to take I don't know how to say it, a few drags a day. I'm really honestly about to throw it out the window.
Good.
So I'm done with it. I've succeeded before, and I'll succeed this time. So.
Excellent. Here's my advice to you: when you want to vape, do 25 push-ups. Every time you want to vape, do 25 push-ups. Get your endorphins going. And then if you want to vape again, do 50 jumping jacks. And then start doing wall sits, wall squats. You're up against the wall and you just got 90 degrees on your legs. You do that for 60 seconds. Then you start doing planks. Every time you want to vape, I want you to do an exercise. Consult your doctor first. Don't sue me if something happens to you. But you know what I'm saying. Okay, I'd like Chris, thanks for the honesty there. Let's go to Marie in Nebraska, line 2. Marie. Taylor wanted to do this segment, and I said, who cares about vaping? Sure. She's right. Okay, I stand corrected. I always give people credit. Or, Mike, you're vaping. Put out the vape pen, Mike. Mike's vaping in the other room. No, he isn't. I'm just kidding. Marie, go ahead.
First of all, Laura, I agree that those kids or people sounded like they were stoned, actually.
Dumb, sorry.
Dumb. But I wanted to tell you that I live in Omaha, and our granddaughter went to a parochial high school, and they were both vaping during school hours. And the teachers I guess they thought they were those little things you put in your computer, USB plugged or whatever.
Right, USB flash drives.
That's what they look like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, they can't be that stupid.
Okay, do you admit the vapor? Can you see the vapor coming out of all the pens, or no? You can, right? Or some pens have no vapor coming out? Or you can see it. So how do the teachers miss that? They just see these big clouds of vapor and they think, oh, there's a steam pipe broken? I mean, what are they thinking in the classroom? I don't understand this. It's ridiculous. All right, Marie, you sound fun, but we got to get to the other calls. You have a good day, girlfriend. Let's go to Catherine, Florida. Catherine, you're giving us the bigger picture. Go ahead. I love bigger pictures for my listeners. I'm a small picture kind of person. No, just kidding. Give me the big picture. Go ahead.
So here's the big picture. I have an 8th grader. Mm-hmm. You're asking about why the teachers don't do smoke. That's because they're not doing smoke. They're selling pods, which emit virtually no smoke. They're doing them in the bathroom, and then they start selling them for money. And where are they getting them from? They're getting them from their parents. They're getting the high schoolers to buy them. It's like an alternative trade here in Florida. And my boy has been caught up in this. And talk about the transition between the pods to make money. Now they're buying pot.
Yeah, well, they're getting ready for the big pot influx, right? Yeah.
Yes, and I can tell you as a mother of an 8th grader in Florida that there is no more smoke. They're doing the pods, so you don't see it. And all the flavors, all those colors are correct. But now it's almost like an adjunct. In the old days, when I went to school, pot became something more serious, and you did, cocaine or whatever.
Right.
Now it's vape to pot, and it is no big deal. It's like you're not cool if you're not doing it, So I just
oh my God! Let me tell you, my kids start vaping. My kids start vaping. They will be homeschooled, and I will search every. There's no privacy in the Ingraham household, okay? If you're one of my kids and you start this, there is no privacy. I will go through every drawer, every pocket, I'll bring in a bloodhound if I have to. Whatever I have to do, I'm going to bring in, maybe I just need to have I mean, my kids are pretty little still, but, Maria's getting up there. She's a good girl. But, a lot of good girls and good guys get stuck on this stuff. I mean, and it's marketed to them with these flavors. I agree. I think it's all trash. I think it's all trash. I appreciate it. Let's go to Lou on Mississippi as a representative of the vaping industry. I'm just kidding, Lou. I hope you're not, but go ahead. Go ahead, Lou.
No, I'm not.
I'm just teasing you.
I got you. I hate to hear all the negative stuff about vaping.
Yeah.
I smoked for 38 years. At 50 years old, I couldn't hardly walk up a flight of stairs.
Mm-hmm.
Cigarettes have about 176 chemicals in them, including arsenic and fire retardants and God knows what.
Mm-hmm.
Vaping, the vape itself, it has 4 substances in it. It has nicotine, vegetable glycerol, propylene glycol, and flavorings. The reason I know that is I make my own juice, and where I was spending $75 a week, I was a pack-and-a-half day smoker. Before that, now I spend about $20 a month, and I run every weekend with my son, my 23-year-old son, who's an amateur MMA fighter.
All right,
and
love that.
We run 3 and 4 miles.
All
we
right.
run 3 and 4 miles.
Well, good for you. But NBC News just came out with a story early March. Teens inhale cancer-causing chemicals in e-cigarettes. According to researchers, they said teenagers who try vaping may be poisoning themselves with many of the same chemicals that make traditional cigarettes so deadly.
Welcome to the Dennis Miller option. I remember Seagal came in some Alan Carr caftan or something, sat down with a Iroquois braid. I thought this could be a long week. Dana Carvey, ladies and gentlemen.
Why don't you yell out for Steve out there? See if you can get him to come in like you're the real deal. Oh, listen, and Gord, Arnold's stronger than you. Your buttocks are like marshmallows compared to Arnold.
It was like the horse broke its leg in the back straight away, put the tent up and put me down. It was so awkward.
Remember to listen to new episodes of the Dennis Miller Option every Wednesday right here on Podcast One.
Do it.
You can follow Dennis on Twitter at DennisDMZ, Instagram at Dennis Miller, and on Facebook he's at Real Dennis Miller.
And by the way, I hide nothing here with the Dennis Miller podcast.
What kind of mind thinks of this?
Lucky you're listening to a special Best of Laura Ingraham show.
Some superhero, some fairy tale bliss.
When I'm riding my bike, like far distances, it makes me feel like I'm riding away. And the reason I vape is to basically get away and get my mind off of things. I was 13 years old when I vaped for the first time. I started buying $5 vaporizers, and from there, I moved on to bigger ones.
You get the sense that everybody is searching for relief, searching for an end to their anxiety, searching for meaning, release. So whether it's booze or drugs or old-fashioned cigs or now e-cigs, anything. Try something new to stimulate. You know what? Stimulate your mind with learning. Stimulate your mind with exercise. You want to know a way to get your mind really moving in the right direction? Keep yourself healthy. This morning I got back into my well, running. I mean, I'm a slow runner. I used to be really fast. I'm going to get back into it, but I'm slowly getting back into it. So I think 4.2 miles. Ran over the Memorial Bridge, down the GW Parkway, past Roosevelt Island, up to the Key Bridge, across all those wooden platforms, across the Key Bridge, which is just disturbingly falling apart, by the way, infrastructure problems, and all the way back through Georgetown, continuing on to our office. I got to say, I feel so good. I mean, again, I'm not the fastest runner, but beautiful weather, get outside. If you do something vigorous, check with your doctor first, make sure that it works for you and your physique, your body, your age, but vigorous for a half hour. Do it. You'll feel better. You won't want to pick up a cigarette. You will not want to vape if you're active, if you're healthy. You won't want to do it. And don't put the chemicals in your body. If you can avoid the chemicals, all the lousy processed food that we all eat, all that stuff, the white flour, all that is terrible for your body. So eat better, exercise more, you'll sleep better. Limit the booze intake if you drink, and again, you're adding years to your life, and you're going to have your own high. That's your own high. You feel good. You want to engage. You want to engage with people and friends, and telling you, that's the way to go. Chrissy in Michigan, line 1. Coming up, we have a Saving the First Amendment segment. You're not going to want to miss it. One of the top law professors in the United States. Chrissy.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. First of all, I'm a respiratory therapist, and I take care of these patients that come in, and they end up with COPD, and, you're worth it. You got to get these people to think that they're worth taking care of themselves for. And vaping is no better than smoking in my book. You're taking that stuff in, and it just causes other problems. I mean, cigarettes are on a whole level, and then vaping and those e-cigarettes are on another, and they end up with the same thing. You're going to have lung issues. You only get one set of lungs in your lifetime, and for those very few that get two, and that's for another. That's a blessing there. But honestly, you have one set of lungs in your lifetime, and you have to take care of them.
It's ridiculous. I mean, and I think a lot of these people, Chrissy, think that it's good. It's fine for you. A lot of these kids are led to believe that it's better than smoking. It's okay. It's flavorful. No, there's no smoke. So how can it be bad for you? But you're saying they develop that COPD in their teen years. Is that what you're saying?
Well, or
it takes root in your teen years,
you're talking about having people. Yeah, well, you're talking. I'm in my late 30s, and I have patients that come in their 30s that are younger than me, that are coming in with these problems. Not necessarily, but I'm just talking smoking in general and e-cigarettes. If you're trying to quit smoking, it's the nicotine itself is harder than is secondary to quitting heroin. It's hard. I get it. And nobody wants to threaten you to, like, you're going to die and you're going to get a stone, things like that. But you're worth it. People, you're worth it.
Yeah.
And, take it one day at a time, but quit. Your lungs will thank you for it.
You know what? This is what, I think back in what, not to make this political, but what Donald Trump said about, drinking and smoking. He said, I told my kids, don't take the first puff. Don't take it. And I know not everybody who tries it does it, but some do. Some people's genetic makeup is very addictive. They are addictive personalities. Their genetic makeup makes it more likely that they'll become an addict or not be able to quit in the future. So why try it? That's what I'm telling my kids. People are going to push this stuff on you. Be smarter than they are, and you'll be a success. I'm just trying to say all the things that I think would work on me when I was their age, but who knows if it's going to work. Chrissy, those are words to the wise from you as a respiratory therapist who sees the results of long-term vaping and smoking. Dan in South Carolina. Dan.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, good to have you on.
What's pretty troubling in my city, Florence, but there's a South Florence High School and then there's a South Florence Middle School, or Southside Middle School. They're side by side, 7th through 12th. And across the street, there's a company, a vaping company, put a an enclosed trailer that has their company name wrapped on it in the front yard of a house. So they're basically advertising. There's no other advertising signs around, but they managed to get this in the yard of somebody's house.
Unbelievable.
It stays there all school year.
That should be ended. They should put an end to that real quick. It's like putting Planned Parenthood clinics in the inner city. Inner city, no big deal, just a clump of cells. And until you look at that digital in utero photography and you see exactly what it is. This is a baby, but just no big deal. Just it's come in, Planned Parenthood. It's parenthood, but it's planned, right? And so all these victims come in, and they don't know better. Some of them might, but a lot of them don't. And I think same thing with the kids in the vape. I don't want to compare vaping to a Planned Parenthood, but you see what I'm saying there. It's terrible. Let's go to Karen, Texas, line 3. Karen.
Good morning, Laura. How are you?
I'm great, thanks.
I just wanted to say that, we end up with the dumbed-down electorate because of our schools, and what better way to dumb down the children starting at very young ages with the vaping to make it even worse.
No, I agree. I mean, the kids don't exactly sound like national merit finalists who the montage of sound bites we played earlier. They do not the really smart kids vape. Well, they're not that smart then. Book smart and smart are two different things. I appreciate it. Let's go to Dan in Iowa, line 4. A lot of you have experience with this. I actually didn't think this was going to be a very popular topic, but my goodness, this has turned out to be a popular topic. We have the First Amendment to save. Next segment. Go ahead, Dan.
Hi, Laura.
Hey.
I had a son that I was having some family issues with. He was 14 years old, didn't like rules and stuff. And I told him part of my rules were no cigarettes, no vaping, no pot, none of that stuff in my house. And I basically got so bad, we went to see a family counselor, me and him. And the counselor basically kind of chewed me out and says, if this is the only thing that your son is doing wrong, maybe you should just let him have it, because you may alienate him and drive him away from you even further. And I said, wrong is wrong. If he goes away or drives away, it's because of his choices, not mine. This guy wouldn't let me leave his room. He kind of stood in front of me and says, it's parents like you that are the problem these days. Everything is so terrible, and they can't let them grow up at all. I said, I didn't make the laws, but I am going to enforce them in my house.
Good for you.
And he kind of told me how wrong I was, and that isn't that big a deal. So then before I left, I asked him, let me ask you something. Are you a smoker? I've smoked for 30 years. I said, no wonder. And then I turned around and walked out.
Oh, that's good. Good for you. Well, let's go to Paige, Texas. Then we're going to close that out. Paige.
Yes, I used to work in the industry for about a year, and I was able to get off cigarettes. But you said, you didn't want to make it political, but I promise you it's political. Big Tobacco hates e-cigarettes because they want that cigarette money, and they put out a lot of these articles about how dangerous of cigarettes, but they always say it might cause this or maybe it'll do this, or, the articles are always kind of wishy-washy.
Yeah, well, Dartmouth, I think Dartmouth College I don't know if they're getting money from the cigarette industry. They did one of the studies, didn't they? I'm not sure that they're, but, I don't doubt that the, tobacco industry doesn't love the e-cigarettes because they lose money. But the other study shows that people who vape are more likely to smoke cigarettes. That's what the Dartmouth College study said. So they're actually, it's a trail from e-cigarettes to actual smoking. Again, I don't get any of this stuff. It's not my thing, and I don't get it. But none of it's good. Let's face it, none of it's good for kids. It's a big business, and big business, different lobbying groups. They have a lot of influence in Washington, and they're going to try to argue that it's all fine. They argued that smoking was fine for a long time until we found out that it actually causes lung cancer. So who knows what we'll find out about this. And we're also being told that pot is innocuous. It's not a gateway drug. It's all bull. Okay? That's all bull. It's terrible for you. Makes you stupid as a kid. And you're never, ever going to be the success you would have been if you start smoking pot as a kid and you continue it through your teen years. I'm sorry. Trying it is one thing. Smoking it continuously is another. We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA. And no, you shouldn't try it either. Don't go away.
Stay tuned for more of this special edition of The Laura Ingraham Show.
You're listening to the best of the Laura Ingraham Show.
You've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything.
So we've been tracking these mostly left-wing attempts to squelch free speech in the United States. And look, I've dealt with it with my own situation on the Ingraham angle. People don't like the fact that we're outperforming, winning, the show's doing really well, and a lot of the leftists, they don't want to debate you. They don't want to come on the show. They want to shut you down. Okay? Well, now it's happening to 8th graders. Listen to this. An 8th grader in Nevada is suing his school district over its dress code ban on shirts that are deemed to be pro-gun or pro-Second Amendment. Joining us now is law professor extraordinaire of UCLA, and Eugene Volokh is the author of the blog The Volokh Conspiracy. And he joins us now on this issue of now free expression in T-shirts. I guess if you had the T-shirt, professor, that said "blank the police," that would be protected, but not "don't tread on me."
Well, actually, I think it's a little bit more complicated. The dress code in the Nevada School District would bar a T-shirt that contains vulgarities. It specifically says no vulgar, profane, or derogatory language. And in fact, the U.S. Supreme Court has held in the Bethel School District, the Fraser case, that schools can indeed limit vulgarities. But the dress code also bans anything that promotes weapons. And that has been read by the school as barring even, at least read by school teachers in the school, and in one situation by an assistant principal, as barring depiction of weapons that's a positive depiction, and barring things like a T-shirt that praises the Firearms Policy Coalition, which is a pro-gun rights group. So they do try to restrict a bunch of different things. They also ban a speech that promotes alcohol, including, by the way, that promotes lawful consumption of alcohol. Obviously, alcohol is not lawful for kids, but you could say, wine is a wonderful thing, and I'll drink it when I'm 21. That too would be forbidden under the. Well,
students have a much lower. Obviously, they have a much lower level of protection of privacy interests. You could search a kid's locker. I mean, those cases are old cases we studied in law school. So no, kids can't scream out in the middle of class. I mean, their political views. I mean, they can be punished for that. But I think the general concern that's developing, and we'll have you on for a longer segment, is that certain speech gets more protection in the United States by large companies and corporations that seem in many ways to operate like mini governments in their own way than do liberal governments. So it's not officially state action, but sometimes it seems that way to people.
Right, it's true. And for example, in this case, it appears that the school actually facilitated this pro-gun control walkout, but bars these kinds of pro-gun rights T-shirts. So yes, I'm sorry. Just to make clear, I'm a lawyer. I'm on the legal team for the plaintiff here. I think we have a very solid case. I'll add that Nevada law actually specifically prohibits speech dress codes like this. It specifically protects people's rights to express themselves about gun rights. There's a specialized statute passed in 2015. I will say also it's a complicated matter as to left-right. Your former boss, Justice Thomas, by the way, Justice whom I admire very greatly, his view is actually that schools should be free to restrict any speech they want, whether left-wing speech, right-wing, pro-gun rights, anti, and the like. And there had been a tradition in America for quite a while of it being conservatives who say, in schools speech should be more restricted.
No, I agree. No, I see your point. But if you're going to restrict political speech, it probably should be speech across the board. Political speech across the board. It shouldn't be read to be one particular type of speech or viewpoint discrimination. I think it makes for a bigger problem.
This has been the Best of the Laura Ingraham Show.
Thanks for listening to the Laura Ingraham Show podcast. Download new episodes every week at podcastone.com. That's podcastone.com.
Look out, the Lady Gang podcast is hitting you up every Tuesday and Thursday on Podcast One. Check out this week's chat with Dancing with the Stars alum, Brooke Burke.
I traveled around the world and did 40 countries in 2 years and did
amazing.
insane things.
That's
like,
awesome.
I flew a rocket, I swam with sharks, I jumped out of planes. I did things that we would never do. As a woman, if I thought about it, I'd be like, I would never do that. I know. Total adrenaline junkie.
Amazing. Download the Lady Gang podcast at Podcast One and Apple Podcasts. Also remember to rate and review.
Now ADT can help protect your family at home and on the go. Get started with ADT's best offer, an ADT starter kit and security camera installed free. A savings of $449. Plus, you'll get ADT Go, the new family mobile safety app and service for 24/7 emergency response. Go to ADT.com/podcast today to take advantage of ADT's best offer with 36-month monitoring contract, easy pay and QSP. Early termination and activation fees apply. Additional charge for ADT Go premium services after 3/31/18. Certain markets excluded. Licenses available at ADT.com. Offer ends April 1st.
I'm Rita Foley with an AP News Minute. A massive storm is fouling up travel plans up and down Florida's Gulf Coast. Subtropical storm Alberto is expected to make landfall sometime today on the northern Gulf Coast. The National Hurricane Center's John Cangelosi on what to expect.
Even after the storm weakens to a subtropical depression and a remnant low, it could still deliver some flooding rains across much of the southeast and the Tennessee Valley and even the Carolinas, where we could see 2 to 6 inches of rain during the next few days.
Ellicott City, Maryland is beginning to clean up after yesterday's devastating storm. About 8 inches of rain in just a few hours. Massive flooding. Pat Hibben was at a restaurant there.
The floor was flooded with water. Water was coming in through the walls.
Jason Seaman, a science teacher who was shot while tackling an armed student at a suburban Indianapolis middle school, is scheduled to talk about that experience today at a news conference. I'm Rita Foley.